Episode 6 of The Staircase dropped and Michael sprung loose. Let's recap. The title of this episode is Red in Tooth and Claw. It's 2017. Michael Peterson's been out on house arrest for 6 years and granted a new trial on reversible error because of Special Agent Deaver. Michael's entering an Alford plea, maintaining his innocence because if he's found guilty during this new trial, which would be highly likely, he'd be in jeopardy of getting an even harsher sentence and spending the rest of his natural-born life in prison. We see that he and Sophie have grown their connection and they are a couple now. Girl, don't take the stairs. Sophie's meeting with neighbor Larry, who believes that Kathleen was maimed by an owl, and that's how Kathleen got the lacerations on her head. I mean, neighbor Larry's a sleuth at this point. I mean, he's been studying the case and reviewing the autopsy report and the photos. And he concludes that Kathy was clawed through her full head of hair, ran up the stairs, and then fell down to her death. To my mind, that doesn't explain why Kathleen wasn't scalped. Remember, the medical examiner shaved her head and found these lacerations, and it doesn't explain Kath's thyroid cartilage resulting in strangulation because Al didn't asphyxiate her. His attorney, David Rudoff, tried 3 times unsuccessfully to get Michael an appeal and was flat out denied, right? And he's got to break it to Michael's kids and Michael, who all but fires him. The kids are living their lives, or trying to, since Michael's been sentenced and serving time in prison. Sophie, though, is trying to prepare a life for her and Michael once he's finally released, because she believes that he will be freed, okay? She's let go of her son and husband, apparently, because she was married with a son. This episode doesn't go into specifics about that relationship, but they tease it a little bit, and so we are to assume that custody is shared because there's like a drop-off situation. We see 17 days before Kathy's murder, her frustration with the bats in the attic and the water leak. So it's a good thing we get Toni Collette in this episode. We see Kathleen and her sister Candice's dynamic. Kathleen cancels Thanksgiving and drags the family to Centerville, Virginia, where Candice and her husband live. Lots of competitive tension when they're around each other. Candice is seemingly the perfect sister that has it all together. And Kathleen, at this point in her life, is exhausted trying to hold her family together. So there's sort of a exhausted executive working mom versus a seemingly happy housewife. Sisters bickering, going at it. Meanwhile, Sophie's making prison visits with Michael and his kids. So they're getting hot and heavy. Sophie explores neighbor Larry's owl theory. I mean, literally takes it serious. And the stamps aren't coming anymore. Money is tight, and Michael's given up on exchanging stamps for his safety. He's got to defend himself at this point, because now it's sinking in that he may be really in prison for life. And so he begins instigating fights to prove that he's somehow strong and to be thrown in the hole or solitary confinement away from general population. So it's settling in that he may be there for life. And the kids are on the outside struggling to balance life again after their father's conviction. So they are struggling. Todd's relapsing. Martha's trying to live free as a queer woman, and she seeks out counseling because, two of her moms have died. So with this new theory that neighbor Larry has put on Sophie, she meets with medical examiner Dr. Radish, who can't seem to explain why feathers were found in Kathleen's dead hands. In fact, she claims she's never known about these feathers. She hadn't seen them before Sophie had presented them to her. So Radish says she would be willing to examine Kathleen's lacerations, but her body would have to be exhumed. And the only one who has authority to exhume Kathleen's remains is Caitlin. And she is dead set that Kathleen was murdered by Michael. Margaret finds out that Michael was going to adopt Martha because of behavior issues and was willing to split the sisters up. This crushes her. But because she calls Martha and she's about to tell her, but Martha is such in a good mood because after speaking with her therapist, she feels so free that she's about to come out of the closet, but she's going to tell everyone at Christmas dinner. And so Margaret holds on to the information. And they're all making big plans for Christmas. It's really sad to see. So happy. They're so happy about the holidays and being with the family and making plans. And this happens to Kathleen Peterson. It's so crushing. It's so sad. I noticed from the first episode that Kathleen's glass, her wine glass, is positioned on the kitchen bar. When she comes in from the pool, she leaves Michael at the pool. She comes in, and the first thing she does is set her glass on that kitchen nook. But Michael's isn't in subsequent episodes. In the first episode, there are two glasses there. In the scene where the police are there and they are examining the crime scene, or they are investigating the crime scene, Michael's glass and Kathleen's glass are both there. But in subsequent episodes, including this one, only Kathleen's glass is there. And I'm just wondering if this is pointed, or is this a mistake in props? I don't know if this is intentional. But I just noticed it. Anyway, in this next to last scene, they explored the owl theory. So in previous episodes, you've seen Michael's point of view, where Kathleen just fell to her death. And then in another episode, you see the prosecution's theory that Michael beat Kathleen with the blowpoke. In this episode, neighbor Larry's theory is explored, that Kathleen was out fiddling with the Christmas deer and an owl attacked her, and she runs in the house. But why would she go upstairs? I know she's in pain, and maybe she was even a little delirious. But Michael is just outside at the pool. And if she is already outside, in the front, and an owl attacked her, why wouldn't she just run around the corner to where Michael is, or even yell his name while she's outside? This is choreographed. She comes into the house and she's about to run upstairs and falls to her death there, and she is almost whispering Michael's name, like it's not yelling to the top of her lungs. If she's outside and Michael's outside and she yelled his name, I think it would have been easier for him to hear than if she comes in the house and basically whispers his name. So to my mind, this theory doesn't really work. But again, HBO is imposing us to conclude what we think without any bias, I'll say. In the final scene, Sophie pleads with Caitlin to exhume Kathleen's body. And Caitlin tells her off, like many of us would. Caitlin's been through enough. She's lost her mom. And this woman who's dating Michael wants to exhume her mom's remains. So I understand where Caitlin is coming from. And she tells her, Michael did this. There is no reason for her to exhume the body. And she says, do not contact me anymore. Contact my lawyer if you want to speak with me. It was such a gut-wrenching scene. I loved that scene. Toni Collette, Colin Firth, and Juliette Binoche, everyone, delivered stellar, Emmy-worthy performances in this episode. It's just a shame that we didn't get Parker Posey again. The second consecutive episode, we don't have Parker Posey. But this was such a great scene. It's on HBO. This is episode 6. If you've seen it, what do you think? What is your theory? Do you believe neighbor Larry that an owl attacked her? I don't get it. Okay, the final scene. David Rudoff is reading aloud Michael's Alford plea paired with a statement. Yeah, David Rudoff there, Sophie is there, and Michael is there, and the documentary crew is off to the side capturing it all. And in the statement, David Rudoff reads aloud that Michael wants to maintain his innocence and petition the court for manslaughter, which is a reduced sentence. He wants to petition the court for manslaughter, which at that point held 29 months. So he would get manslaughter and time served if the judge agreed to this Alford plea. And Michael looks to this camera and he says, that is a lie. I will not admit to killing Kathleen, and rejects the Alford plea. That's where we are at this point in the story, that he rejects the Alford plea because he refuses to admit to killing Kathleen. But thank you so much if you stuck around this long. I certainly appreciate you. Please consider liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing. And until next episode, peace.